Welcome to the Rendered Hope podcast. My name is Phillip Carroll, and I am your gracious host. And I'm just so excited and honored to be here today to launch this new project that's been on my mind for such a long time. And I want to thank you, first of all, for joining me, whether this is the week we're launching, whether this is something you're coming back to, or something you're replaying. I'm so excited to get into the reasons and the purposes and even the plans that I have for this podcast moving forward, both in the short term and the long term. So, what is the Rendered Hope podcast? As you saw in the tagline or read in the description, the desire of this podcast is to inspire, is to motivate, is to bring hope. It's to have conversations, it's to have monologues and talk with people or express myself for you to get to know me or you get to know my guests and see how they can inspire you to hope to be better, to hope to achieve better, to hope to even think better, because I think so often we can get caught up. We get caught up in this mindset and this the influences of social media and the things we see on the news and things we see in television or even things we see in the movies, and we start to have a lack of self-confidence. We start to lack self-confidence and motivation to achieve greater for ourselves because we see these things as unattainable. We see these things as something reserved for celebrities or those with greater money or those with greater status or those with greater intellect, according to how we view them. But the truth is, no matter who you are or what you've been through, what you do, or your experiences, you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to achieve greater, not to be better than someone else, but to be better than yourself. Because we have an opportunity every day to grow, to be better today than we were yesterday, and to be better tomorrow than we are today. So that's in a nutshell, that's the gist of this podcast. This podcast exists to motivate you, to give you hope, to be greater than, right? And it's my desire to bring people to you. It's my desire to express myself, for those who know me and for those who are going to get to know me, and how my experiences and the things that I've gone through and the person that I am and how I can inspire you so that you don't have to go through the same things I did. And the people that you'll meet through this podcast and the things that they've gone through and the things that they've learned. It's my desire to bring people who have started businesses and have suffered traumatic loss and have moved up the corporate ladder and have found ways to even find success in social media. People who have learned a great amount, those who have advanced in their education, those who have learned things that we would not necessarily learn when we get stuck in a bubble, when we get stuck in our career fields or social groups or things of that nature. And I don't want to just bring you people and talk about their lives. I don't want to just talk about my life and garner sympathy or garner empathy towards the things that I say. Because we can become so wrapped up even in this podcasting platform. As I get into it, I've been listening and watching podcasts for over 10 years, and something that I've learned is there's such a powerful, unique, and expressive way that conversations and interviews and dialogues, shared between the podcaster and listener, and this relationship that gets formed. And I want to use that, because for so long I've had this desire to start this podcast. For so long I've had this desire to explore this medium and start to share the ideas in my mind and share the thoughts in my head. And I've allowed almost this desire to fall to the wayside because I didn't consider what I had to say to be important. And something that I thought about, even in the desire of this podcast, even in the launching of this podcast, is so often we allow our fears and we allow our insecurities to prevent us from doing the thing that we know will cause other people to achieve greater, will cause other people to become inspired, will cause other people to walk in this area of hope where they might feel down on their luck, where they might feel lonely, while they might fear that they're going to be in this place of despair for their lives, and they don't know that there is a greater thing waiting for them because they don't have examples. So once again, a great desire I have of this podcast is to provide you with conversations. And even if it's not with a guest, there's going to be plenty of episodes where it's just me. We're going to talk. I'm going to learn what to do with my hands. I'm going to learn how to connect with you. And that's your opportunity. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify after the fact, please leave comments. I'm going to read them. Tell me, what kind of people would you like to listen to? What kind of things would you like us to talk about? We're going to explore, how to manage money, how to be leaders, how to have families, how to lead families. How do we balance? Work-life balance is something that's becoming almost a myth today now that we're desiring to have 9 to 5 jobs and run our own businesses and manage our own families and invest our income and find entertainment and all of these extracurricular things that it can be so hard to manage. It can be so hard to manage your time, right? Because we can become so passionate, we can become so skilled, but sometimes we just don't have the time. So there's a vast amount of topics that I want to cover through this podcast. Whether I'm with you once a week or we might even evolve this thing to twice a week. So again, this is your opportunity. If you're watching, even if you're coming back to this, I hope you're coming from a good place, that this podcast is growing and it's just your desire to see where this began. But I want to get a little bit more into myself. I'm 30 years old. So yeah, we'll leave that there. But this podcast exists because I have seen so much. I've met so many people, and I have had so many experiences where I've seen people almost transformed by the power of their own mind. And this isn't to say that they manifested a destiny for themselves, but they understood that they weren't quite living to their full potential. And not because of something they did necessarily, but there's something to do with the mind. When we have an example, when we don't just rely on our motivation, but we find this discipline and we find this consistency and mentorship and the things in our lives that guide us to a greater purpose. Because when you live from a place of purpose, and don't get me wrong, this isn't some self-help podcast. This isn't going to be something where you just need to follow these steps and you're going to find a level of success. But it is my desire for you to almost within yourself unlock a greater source of potential, to unlock a greater pathway for you to be the best version of yourself. And that's what it means, when I say that this is the Rendered Hope podcast, that you would have a source of hope created within yourself to once again achieve greater. And for myself, I realized from an early age that I was almost balancing and teetering this line of being ambitious, but also walking and living in this state of depression. And it's something that I had to work through for many years. I didn't necessarily seek professional help, although I do advocate for that, for therapy and counseling and things of that nature. But for me, it always came down to this thing of I need something greater. I need to occupy my time. I need to occupy my mind. And even podcasts, I wouldn't say that they were the thing that I turned to, but I can still think of a lot of interviews and conversations that I listened to that I still remember. People who had negative experiences and traumatic experiences and traumatic loss, or they didn't know what they were doing with their life, and how a simple idea or a person or a relationship or a job began to turn the wheels in their mind and turn the wheels in their confidence to achieve greater and to do greater things. So when we think about these conversations that inspire hope, and even when it's just the two of us, right? Or whoever is listening to me, my desire is that you would leave this podcast and leave this experience almost better than you were coming in. Because we're going to get into a lot of topics, and I want you to understand that maybe not every episode will be for you. Maybe not every guest will be relatable to you, but I desire that, in the in the long span of you listening to this podcast, or watching this podcast on YouTube, that you would just get a little bit of something out of it. Whether it's you listening on your commute to work, whether you're on a walk, or working out, or just at the house, that there would be something worth listening for you to continue to tune in. So again, one more time, just, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, if you're on Apple, please just leave a comment, give a suggestion, give an idea, any feedback. I'm welcome and open to feedback, because as this podcast grows, I my hope is that I would grow as a host and you would grow as my listener, right? We want to grow as people, to be better again today than we were yesterday, and better tomorrow than we are today. So over the next few weeks, we're going to be meeting together on Mondays. We're going to be launching this podcast on Mondays, and occasionally I might go live during the week. But I have a lot of guests lined up that come from many different experiences, that come from many different walks of life, and do different jobs, and have something different to say. Again, I want to bring people that have a different message. I don't want to bring the same type of person every week, because there's so many different experiences that we can have, and there's so many different people that we can learn from. And these might be people that I already know. These might be people that I meet. These might be some of you, you know. And opportunities will come up later for maybe some of you viewers to join me on this podcast. But for now, I just want you to really enjoy the content. I want to provide content that inspires you, that leaves you in a good mood, that provides positivity in your life. I think there's enough of the negativity. I think there's enough of the drama and the gossip existing on these platforms, but not quite enough of this genre. Because I don't want to just get into what happened to me when I grew up. You know, what inspired you to build this business, or start this plan, but really the depth. How did this transform you? What did you learn from this experience? And where do you see yourself going because of what's happened to you, because of what they did to you, because you took that opportunity? Because we can always look at the big things in life. This person passed away. I decided to put all my eggs into this basket. But to be quite frank, sometimes those kinds of opportunities don't always rise up in our lives. But it's the little things. What did you do on a daily basis? What are the habits you developed? And how did you learn from the mistakes you made when no one was watching? Because a lot of the work we put in, a lot of the time we spend building ourselves up, a lot of the lessons we learn that build our character, these things never go spoken. These things are never explored, but these are the things that unlock you. Because even though we suffer through tragedy, even though we go through mental lapses and writer's block, and sometimes it feels like our luck is down, and nothing is going right, but it's these opportunities and these moments that truly build you up. And again, these are the things that I want to talk about in this podcast. So even as we do it, even as I launch more episodes, my hope is that you learn a little bit more about me, and that you, through you being my viewer, that I would learn a little bit about you, because it's my hope that I would be able to cater the content towards those who need just a little bit more, who need a little extra, who need a little push. And who knows, as this podcast grows, as this is just the first episode, I'm not going to be here too long today, because I just want to kind of give you a preview of what you can expect. So again, we will be launching our episodes every Monday. We'll be live on YouTube every so often. Our episodes will be on YouTube. Our episodes will be on Spotify. There will be opportunities for you to connect with us on social media. You might see other hosts. You might see some guests come back, and I'm open to feedback. If you like an episode, please like it. If you like this episode, please like it. I invite you to subscribe. I invite you to follow. click the notification bell so you see all uploads and live streams. And this is going to be a podcast for the people. I'm not going to be unreachable. I'm not going to put myself on a pedestal above you, because this is something that we're going to do together. I'm not going to come before you and pretend like everything's always all right. I'm not going to deliver this message that says that you need to be perfect, or even to share what you've been through, or your thoughts that you need to have it all figured out. But the desire is, even for those I bring on, this is a journey of not even just inspiring hope, but finding hope and finding motivation and finding a greater sense of purpose. Whether it's in your career field, or the person you are, or the business you're trying to start, or the family you're trying to lead. I think there's always a greater sense of purpose and destiny, and all of these cliches, but just finding within yourself the what it takes to be better than you were tomorrow, than you are today. So with that being said, thank you once again for tuning in to this first episode. I'm excited to see where this goes. And if you have any thoughts or feelings or feedback, please feel free to leave a comment, and I will be reading them. And I will see you all soon.